again. Sebastian Job with a 26 thousandths of a second advantage over Josh Rogers. This is very close indeed. And Alejandro Sanchez also within the same 10th of a second as the top two. So it is unbelievably tight. Max Benecki a whole 10.5 back. And bearing in mind, this isn't a 2.5 mile circuit. This is a 4 mile circuit, 7 kilometers. So this is a long lap as well. And that means that opportunities for overtaking must be seized upon, because you don't come round that many times in a 15-minute race, and surprisingly few even in the 30-minute main encounter.
Yeah, it is all about taking your opportunities. Yeah, as you mentioned, that 15-minute race, that sprint race, is really going to be high intensity. Try and get as many positions as you can. Mitchell de Jong, this is a man who's had a very, well, I was going to say up and down season, but it's been very down at the moment, really, for him. But he's out there on track at the moment. Currently got a 2:19.1, so he's up there in the top 10. It's worth pointing out as well, your top, in your qualifying, your top 26 are covered by 1 second, which is incredible around a track of this length.
Mitchell de Jong bailing out on that lap. 2 10th place finishes in the races in Road Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago now. So the American faring best in America. Not that it's necessarily entirely relevant, but just a little historical interest. Mac Backham on screen. And we often talk about going down the Kemmel Straight to Les Combes here. It's not down. It's very, very, very significantly up. If you've ever walked Spa-Francorchamps, it is a heck of a cardio workout. Here, Jeff Chiassi, the Brazilian, currently only 20th spot. Chiassi is 6th in the championship points. His best qualifying 2nd place. He was 2nd fastest in Zandvoort, not far behind Josh Rogers.
Yes, we have a look at Benecki just on the screen, but you mentioned about it being a cardio workout. That's why I walk the opposite direction of the circuit.
It's still uphill.
It's still quite a workout. Is this track? That's for sure. But I don't want to go walk up Eau Rouge Radio. I want to walk down it. Want to point out as well, Tommy Erskard has just finished his lap. Race winner last year at this venue in the feature race. Qualified 9th, so he's just missing out on that top 8 inversion there.
Absolutely, that was very nearly starting on pole position. How very nearly? 11 thousandths slower than Mitchell de Jong, who is currently 8th. So, yeah, that would have made all the difference, wouldn't it? You know, as we saw half a dozen races ago now, almost, Alejandro Sanchez, you get a chance to start on the sprint race pole. If you don't really throw it away, then suddenly your weekend and potentially your season starts to look an awful lot more interesting, because if you can get into that top 8 and start at the sharp end of the grid and then get on the sprint race podium, then a main race podium is definitely a really good opportunity as well. Sebastian Job, Josh Rogers, Alejandro Sanchez. That is 1, 2, 3 in the championship, and that is 1, 2, 3 in terms of qualifying pace as well. But behind them, it'll be Mitchell de Jong and Kevin Ellis Jr., who start on the front row, ahead of Ricardo Castro-Ledo and Johan Hart. Max Benecki, Alejandro Sanchez meet in the middle. We look down into the Ardennes Forest circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Mitchell de Jong then starts on pole with Kevin Ellis Jr. alongside Ricardo Castro-Ledo, Johan Hart, Max Benecki, and then the 3 championship contenders in their reverse order: Alejandro Sanchez, Josh Rogers, Sebastian Job. Well, interesting to see exactly what transpires from here. Again, Graham Carroll down on 6th row of the grid, having come in here in 10th position in the points, 11th position in the points. He needs to find a bit more pace as well in that Red Bull car. So we are ready to go racing here. It is round 7 of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup by iRacing. This is the 15-minute sprint race up and coming here. And then we will go for our 30-minute main race, where you start where you finished. Decent weather at Spa, never a guarantee in real life. However, that is one of the advantages occasionally of esports competitions, is you can decide what you get. I'm Martin Haven. Paul Smith will be joining me to watch the action. And Paul, as ever, Spa hopefully will produce a big and exciting race for us.
It's all going to be down towards La Source. It's a very short run down to that first corner, tight hairpin. So those drivers, they're going to have to be on it straight away and think about their run down towards Eau Rouge Radion, and then see how they get on up towards Le Combe.
So on pole position, Mitchell de Jong, Kevin Ellis Jr. alongside him with the blue bonnet. Then the next red and white car, Ricardo Castroledo and Johan Hart. Watch down on the right, 4 rows back, the Red Bull colours of Sebastian Job with Josh Rogers alongside him. A long hold for the green. We're waiting for 15 minutes to begin. Away we go. Good start from the pole man, Mitchell de Jong, the American driver, jumping away from the field. Teammate Ricardo Castroledo coming down the inside of Kevin Ellis Jr. and it's 3 wide behind. Josh Rogers goes out wide. He'll get away with that. No, it wasn't Josh Rogers going out wide. Yes, it was. Comes back on in front of Sebastian Job, but they're both behind Alejandro Sanchez. No change between our top 3 in the championship.
Oh, we've got a car. Why, that's Castroledo has been run wide through Rouge Radion, ended up in the wall. We're going 3 wide up the Camel Straight. Can we make it 4? Well, they're trying.
Max Benecki in the middle. He's going to win this one, isn't he? Because he's sort of towards the racing line for 3rd place. Through he goes. Number 11, Max Benecki. Sebastian Job with the Red Bull car. Benecki goes in too deep. Through goes Alejandro Sanchez. He saw the opportunity. So did Sebastian Job. Josh Rogers. Benecki slams the door. Josh Rogers still looking to get by. Can't get by Sanchez. Trying to dive down the inside. Wow. Crazy stuff.
Sanchez had a slowdown penalty. He cut across the inside of the second part of Le Combe. That got him an automatic slowdown penalty. He had to let some of those drivers through. So Rogers, Job, Benecki, also Johan Hart as well, making their way through. Dramatic. And that's on the first quarter of the track.
And that's why Spa's a classic. You've got to love it, haven't you? This should be a 7-lap race. So let's see. Mitchell de Jong is the race leader, car number 24. Kevin Ellis Jr. with the blue highlights, 98 behind him. So those are the 2 that are broken away. Let's take a look at the action there, Paul, because that was a bit of a squirrely first corner.
Yeah, so you're going to look at Ricardo Castroledo, then the number 33 car gets a bit loose through Eau Rouge and Radion, clips the wall. Everybody, great job from everybody else to avoid him having his little moment himself as we go back to live pictures. But yeah, Castroledo all the way down the field in 26. Matt Perez, by the way, and Marin Cholak are back in the pits. They are out of this race.
Well, they may have tangled right at the beginning of the race as well. Yeah, if you hit the curbs on the right-hand side in Eau Rouge, it's never going well for you, I'm afraid. End of the first lap of 7. Mitchell de Jong, Kevin, oh, and a lot of trouble behind as well. Who was that getting shoved backwards? Was that Mac Backham? Not sure. Somewhere in the teens there was trouble. Paul will find who was there and who wasn't. Alejandro Sanchez, we ride on board with him, 7th place. And he's gone back from 6th on the grid. Johan Hart in front, Josh Rogers in front of him. Rogers, yeah, don't take too much of that right-hand curb. Left-hand curb's okay, just about keeping it legal. He got a really good run there through Eau Rouge. Doesn't need to use the grass. He just slips up alongside Johan Hart. And there's not going to be enough space for Hart to retake him. So back up to 6 for Alejandro Sanchez. That's always the move that ends by Le Combe, but starts on the run down into Eau Rouge. Line and length is never more critical. I don't think there's a corner on the planet that rewards you better for taking it well.
It was Joshua Anderson, by the way, who had that huge moment in the background. He got tangled with the 23, which is, I'm looking at my timing screen, Usiakola. Yeah. So those 2 tangling at the bus stop chicane. They are still running though. So Joshua Anderson, but he's down in 28, out of the points at the moment in the sprint race.
Yeah, he got shunted backwards well and proper, didn't he? And Mitchell de Jong, Kevin Ellis Jr., half a second apart, and that doesn't vary much. And they're a second and a half away from Sebastian Job. So don't forget, Job, fastest lap in qualifying, started 8th, now up to 3rd. Max Benecchi 4th, Josh Rogers 5th, Alejandro Sanchez in 6th. So 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, those are your top 4 in the championship. For completeness, 5th in the championship is Dane Warren. Paul, I haven't got enough screen. No,
I could tell you he's not here because there's been a power outage.
Yeah, no,
he's had a power outage. So unfortunately, the Australian National Grid letting him down there.
Well, and you know, real life is reflected in the virtual world, isn't it? Just occasionally, the car won't start in the pit lane. For some reason, it won't fire up. You don't leave the pit lane. You don't get to start the race, and that's your weekend run.
Well, look at Nico Hülkenberg at the British Grand Prix. He had the exact same thing happen to him. He couldn't start.
Looking at Mac Backham, who is just inside the top half, just outside the top dozen. Mac Backham in 16th place. David Williams right behind him. Christopher Dambeats, car number 110, behind Jamie Fluke. They come down the hill. Jared Filzel, 94. The little changes around the circuit that you'll see if you're watching Formula One this weekend, or the Porsche Mobil One Super Cup. They've replaced all the AstroTurf with concrete. They've extended the pit wall at the top and at the bottom of the straight leading down to Eau Rouge. Looking at the replay here of the incident at the bus stop a lap ago. Oh dear.
Yes, it was Anderson. He left that space open, and Jussi Jurkola just decided, oh, I'm going to fill that void there, and then all of a sudden, the two of them get collected.
Thibaut Casubon was the unfortunate who had nothing to do with that. It just came and found them. And again, you know, that's real life as well. Somebody else's accident can ruin your race just as much as it ruins theirs.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, I've been there time and again where you're just sat behind, two guys come together, and it's a case of, well, where do I go? There's nowhere for you to go at all.
No, exactly. And it happens so quickly that even if there were somewhere, the chances of you knowing where that somewhere is and where their bits of machinery are going to fly to are very limited indeed. 110, Christopher Dambeats. Jared Filzel giving chase. And this is the battle for 13th place. They're on board now with Jamie Fluke, just behind Jeremy Bouteloup. Jeremy Bouteloup's little high point of the season victory in the sprint race at Silverstone, finished in 4th place in the main race. Hasn't been able to achieve those heights since then. It's the battle for 11th place. 26 hundredths of a second between them. Bus stop chicane now. You sort of half forget what the old bus stop used to look like. It was a double flick of the wrists at ridiculous speed. Now then, little change in the balance of power here. Mitchell de Jong, Kevin Ellis still about half a second apart, but Sebastian Job is jumping away from the peloton and is catching the breakaway pair. Sebastian Job with the Red Bull livery pulling away from Max Benecchi. He's nearly a second clear of Benecchi, and another good run through Eau Rouge for him, and climbing this power-sapping Kemmel straight. He is still closing, and looks like Kevin Ellis is trying to put the moves in on Mitchell de Jong. He was right up behind him there into the braking area. Couldn't get alongside though.
The Kevin Ellis Jr. was a 10th quicker that last lap than the leader, but Job was a full, 3.5, 4 tenths faster than the two in front of him, so he really has got a bit between his teeth. He's going for it. Jeff Giassi as well, that we're seeing on screen, battling with Bobby Zelensky. Yeah, just went past Zelensky and left Zelensky to deal with Lockwood, who's behind him, Brian Lockwood. So Jeff Giassi didn't really do himself much of a justice in qualifying, runs out very wide. That'll definitely be adding to his track limits quota. Some of these corners aren't particularly policed in real life, but some of them are really strictly policed, and if you're not clearly at least got one wheel within the white line, then you will get pinged for that. Jeff Giassi in 18th position, long way back from where he would like to be. That's just going about the track limits thing. I suppose that's one of the joys of having the simulation here. It can automatically police that, so you don't need to have judges of fact at corners, writing a number down and missing 3 cars that have done exactly the same.
Yeah, they do that at a lot of the motorsport vision circuits as well, particularly at Brands Hatch. You run out wide, the computer says no. Mitchell de Jong, Kevin Ellis and Sebastian Job. That's your 1, 2, 3. Job has now joined them. In fact, he is at the line within a couple of thousandths as close to Kevin Ellis as Kevin Ellis is to Mitchell de Jong. So there's a third of a second in it, or about a car length and a half. And then Max Benecki still half a second back. Josh Rogers behind him. The lead trio heading out to La Source. Again, this steep downhill run, and that makes the speed pick up even more terrifyingly quickly into Eau Rouge. You stay hard over to driver's right, trying to get as far to the left by the pit barrier as you can, and try not to get all 4 wheels off on the inside as you go over that left-hand brow in Webion. And of course, it's a bit blind going up there, so you've got to judge it. Here comes the slipstream in tow from behind, but Mitchell de Jong sticking to the middle, and that means Kevin Ellis Jr. is going to run out of road, not here, but on the exit here. And Sebastian Job is looking to try and insinuate his way between them. He needs to hurry up because Max Benecki is there, 2 by 2 almost. Mitchell de Jong with the red nose now behind Kevin Ellis Jr., but Sebastian Job commits to the outside as they come around Rivage, or Bruxelles as it's now called, cuts back to the inside through the Jackie X curve, and out wide goes the former leader. Mitchell de Jong leaves the door open. Max Benecki coming down the inside into Pouhon. You have to be very cautious here. This is brave stuff, door handle to door handle, Paul Smith.
Yeah, this is millimetre accuracy, rubbing the doors in front. Josh Rogers has got the box seat right here between these two, but it's slowing these guys down to allow Job through. Here comes Rogers now. Yep. He's trying to take advantage of that, and he gains the position.
He does. He gets by the former leader, Mitchell de Jong, as well. He wasn't watching the action. He was trying to figure where the cars were going to go next and where he needed to be. And he chose pretty well going in and out of Piff Paff, picked up a spot. And he's got a good run going here on Max Benecki as well. So Kevin Ellis Jr. leads from Sebastian Job. Max Benecki under pressure from Josh Rogers. The question now is, where's Alejandro Sanchez? He is still in 6th. He is going to start losing touch a little with Josh Rogers at the end of this race, unless he can produce something magical.
Benecki really desperate to hold on to that podium spot at the moment. He's doing everything he can to hold Rogers back. Will Rogers dart out from behind? No, he won't. He's going to stay in the line for the time being. He wants to get that slipstream all the way up the Kemmel Straight, up towards Le Combe.
Well, the question is, will he drop back enough from Max Benecki to be able to get a run on him? Because now, if he's so close behind the number 11 car, if he gets a good run here, he's going to have to feather the throttle because he won't have enough room to get round on the outside. Benecki runs out too wide. On board with Sebastian Job for the lead. And he was far back enough coming down the straight. You've got to judge these things. And the other thing that Josh Rogers will find is if he tries to pass too early, Max Benecki has enough room to tow back by him. He does so. Benecki's still in 3rd, Rogers still in 4th. The big change, Sebastian Job to the lead.
Yeah, he needed to do that, did Job. He needs to get cars between him, Josh Rogers and Alejandro Sanchez for the championship. And where better to try and control a championship than right at the front of your field here. And Kevin Ellis Jr., I don't think he defended that too hard. I think he was just happy. He'll be happy to get some really good points here in 2nd.
Yeah, and he understands as well that the guys around him are fighting for the championship, and he understands too that although he's in 7th place, his battle isn't with these guys, it's with Jeff Chiassi, Tom Usgaard, with Dane Warren. So he's, going to benefit here, because he's ahead of Chiassi. Dane Warren isn't here, so for him, the points are more important maybe than trying to fight a losing battle. So Sebastian Job leads, but look at the top 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, then a tiny gap back to 5th position, Mitchell de Jong, and 6th, Alejandro Sanchez, there with the blue rear end. Sanchez just over a second behind the leader. Is it possible that he could get on the podium? It might depend on what happens between 11, Max Benecki, and 92, Josh Rogers. If that all goes a little bit pear-shaped in the last 2 laps, or the last lap, then things might come Alejandro Sanchez's way. Oh,
Yeah, they're all over the curves. Beneke is a former world champion on iRacing, so he knows how to defend and to race other drivers of that caliber, and he's showing that right now, holding that defensive line, but it's going to compromise him. There's contact for De Jong behind as well. Sanchez has turned him around. And I was about to say, it checks you up into that hairpin if you take that tight inside line.
Well, Alejandro Sanchez will do well to get away with that. Now, it did look maybe as though he was on the brakes in the normal place and Mitchell de Jong braked a little early because he thought something was happening in front of him. Not sure. That will be for the race directors to decide. Sebastian Job leads in the dark blue car. Kevin Ellis right behind him. Then Max Benecke and Josh Rogers, as they were, third and fourth. As you say, Paul, Benecke maybe now almost a full race weekend behind in points, thinking, I'm just going to win races now and not even think about the championship. You know, he came, where did he get his double race wins? He came in so late,
Barcelona.
In Barcelona, but he'd had a nightmare in Zandvoort.
Yeah.
That you know, his championship basically started an entire weekend after everybody else's, and it sort of then juddered around to a bit of a halt as well. Alejandro Sanchez on his own in fifth, probably with damage, and he may be getting all sorts of overheating warnings. I'm not sure he's going to catch these guys. Fifth position, if he holds it, will be as much as he gets ahead of Johan Hart. This is the final lap of the race. Sebastian Job on his way to start the long climb up the hill shortly, wend our way all the way down the valley. And then as you turn right around the new university building at campus, you start the climb back up. And behind you, just there, that's the old circuit. That's where it came in, climbing all the way up from the town of Stavolo. And this is still what used to be public highway, the same track they raced in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s before the modern, shorter, but spiritually the same version was there. Sebastian Job heads into the bus stop chicane for the final time. Kevin Ellis Jr. will be second. Max Benecke completes the podium. Josh Rogers in fourth. Alejandro Sanchez in fifth position. And Johan Hart finishes our sprint race in sixth. So that is how they will start in our second race, the main feature event here at Spa. Well, let's take a look now and see if we can figure out what happened with Kevin Ellis Jr., I beg your pardon, with our pole sitter and with Alejandro Sanchez when he got up behind him. See if we can get the replay from the track. Meanwhile, let's take a look at our results. Victory for Sebastian Job ahead of Kevin Ellis and Max Benecke, Josh Rogers, Alejandro Sanchez and Johan Hart. Usgaard, a winner here last year in seventh, and the top 10 rounded out by Graham Carroll and Jerome Bouteloup. Jamie Fluke just outside that, and that battle with Filzel Backham, Dan Beats and the rest. Jeff Chiassi, only 16th position, not great news for him. Came in here sixth in the championship. Dane Warren, fifth in the championship. Didn't get to the starting grid. So very disappointing for him as well. Josh Anderson turned round early in the race. No start from Dane Warren. Well, Paul, it was entertaining stuff as you come to expect at Spa. I don't know how it is that 15 minutes seems to pass much faster at Spa than anywhere else. Is there some specific time zone here in the Ardennes that we don't know about?
I think we need to get a certain doctor from the BBC to have a look at this area, that's for sure. But it is a spectacular venue. It's a classic circuit, and I think this is one of the best versions of one of the circuits where they cut out the old long circuit. By the way, if you ever go to Spa-Francorchamps, please do go and drive along the old public roads of the old circuit. But we're going to have a look at that incident then with Mitchell de Jong and Alejandro Sanchez down at La Source at the start of that last lap on the Vodafone replay. So we're heading in towards turn number one at La Source. You've got the battling of Benecke and Rogers in front, and then onto the brakes. I think de Jong just checks up because of Rogers turning in there.
Yeah, they both turn in at the same speed. Alejandro Sanchez behind him wasn't coming in hard from behind. On board with Sanchez. And watch the gap between him and De Jong just in front. On the brakes now, they're both on the brakes, off the brakes, but De Jong is not off the brakes, you're right. Yeah. And so I'm assuming that Alejandro Sanchez will get to keep that 5th position. I think that would be a fairly harsh decision if he didn't.
Yeah, I think it'd be fairly harsh as well. Thank you very much, guys. Minehaven, Paul Smith there on the commentary for the sprint race here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup on iRacing. I'm Conor Matic. I'll keep Paul in with me here just to talk a little bit before we get our main race started. But an absolutely fantastic result once again from Sebastian Job here in this event, as we'll get another little angle on this little incident that we had towards the end of the event, which put Mitchell de Jong down a huge amount of spots there, which is unfortunate there, Paul, because he was looking for a little bit of inspiration coming in through the back end of the season. Remember, he was a championship contender at the end of last season, but this season has just been an absolutely horrendous affair for him.
Well, if he doesn't have any luck, then it's just bad luck is what he has right now. But you can see Rogers taking that late apex has caused De Jong to just check up there. I personally think that's just a racing incident, but of course I'm not a race steward in this, so that'll be up to the race stewards to look at that afterwards. But yeah, it's just unfortunate situation where you see Rogers just taking that tight apex late on has caused De Jong just to check up that little bit, and Sanchez really had nowhere to go there.
Yeah, of course, you know, in this series, the race incidents will be investigated after the race. But just to have a little bit of a reminder of how things work here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup, we had a bit of a qualifying session early on with 3 flying laps. We've just had the sprint race, 15 minutes. The top 8 from qualifying get themselves reversed for the grid of the previous race. And now we head in to the main event, the feature race. 30 minutes here of Spa, and a lion's share of the points on offer for this race. 50 points to the race winner, 45 for second, 40 to third, and the breakdown drops off sharply after that. You've also got prize money with $1,000 to the race winner of this next race, Paul, and I think as a result, it was we're going to have quite a few more fireworks coming towards the end of the main race. I get the feeling that at the end of the sprint race, a lot of drivers just sort of consolidated position and just tried to get their spot up the grid for this event. So they weren't really going hammer and tong into the final sectors of the final time. But in this main race, there's no concerns about that.
Yeah, this certainly is going to be an intriguing second part of this event here, but I just think that Job has helped himself out, get the words out, Paul, so much by getting to the front of that field and having Rogers down in 4th place. So that meant he was able to gain 7 points over Joshua in that session. Of course, Josh Rogers did set the fastest qualifying time No, it was Job who set the fastest qualifying. Apologies. So again, qualifying bonus, that was an extra 2 points over Rogers as well, with Sanchez 3rd in the qualifying. So Job is trying to make some moves here, trying to make some money moves here to get himself a good bit of chunk of points over his 2 championship rivals. However, we've seen it time and again in this series, because it is so close between all these competitors, one little mistake, as we saw with Sanchez getting his slow down penalty, that drops you down the field.
Especially at this track with racing like this, it is so close. Like you quite rightfully mentioned, you make that one error and you've got about 5 cars that are trying to get through on your inside. So it's an absolutely impossible situation to be in. So you have to be so careful, especially if you're one of those front-running cars, one of those championship contending cars, shall we say. But we've got about 3 minutes left remaining before we get to the grid for the main feature race. I just want to say, what a good job Kevin Ellis Jr. did in that sprint race. Of course, started in that second spot, but he was able to hold on and an exemplary drive, especially up against that tough competition.
Yeah, he did a great job, kept on the pressure, and kept he went for it on the last lap as well. So good job by Kevin. We'll see more in the second race.
Yep, we will as well, as we'll get ourselves ready and set for that one. We'll go for a very, very quick break, but we'll be back with the main race in just a couple of moments' time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. We've just had the sprint race of 15 minutes here at Spa-Francorchamps, and we're just about to head into the 30-minute feature. I'm Connery Maddock, and your commentary team will be Martin Haven and Paul Smith. We're about a minute away from getting the gridding procedure underway here for round number 7 of the championship. And Paul, there's a little bit of tension in the air, I feel.
Yeah, this is now starting to get towards the make or break part of the championship, and you've got different circuits coming up with unique properties to each of them. I'm looking forward to this one. This could be a big deal in this whole championship outcome this next 30 minutes.
So with the gridding imminent, I'll hand you over to the commentary team of Martin Haven and Paul Smith. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Connery, and welcome back to the grid here at Spa-Francorchamps. Blue skies overhead. It's a wonderful world when you get blue skies at Spa. It's been very hot summer, actually, in Spa, so expect to see that change now that Formula One has arrived for the real world weekend. Meanwhile, in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup here, heading into this 30-minute main encounter, and they start the main race as they finished the sprint. Sebastian Jobar, points leader, extended his advantage a fraction over his closest rivals, Josh Rogers and Alejandro Sanchez. He will start on pole. Kevin Ellis Jr. alongside him. Max Benecchi third, Josh Rogers, the reigning champion, in fourth. Alejandro Sanchez in fifth position. And looking further on down the order, Tommy Østgaard was a winner here last year. Graham Carroll a winner already this year. Jamie Fluke on Jared Filzell on row 6 of the grid. And a little further back, Jeff Gyasi needs to find a bit more pace. Brazilian losing ground to his closest championship rival, Kevin Ellis Jr., who's finished in second place and starts second again. Now, after 7 laps in the first race, this should be a 13-lap race if it all goes lightning fast and smoothly. Who knows, we might get onto a 14th. Dane Warren had a power outage back home, is not on the grid, unfortunately for him. So Martin Haven and Paul Smith ready for the action here. Sebastian Job on pole, Kevin Ellis Jr. alongside. Can Josh Rogers get to the championship leader and the pole man? Away we go. Not a good start from Josh Rogers. Alejandro Sanchez, blue and turquoise car, looking to go down the inside. Still looking to go down the inside into the hairpin at La Source. He's alongside. And Josh Rogers runs out a little wide. It is a start for Sebastian Job that will keep him ahead of his rivals, though. Kevin Ellis battling with Max Benecchi, door handle to door handle. Benecchi on the right-hand side pulls out of that, runs out very wide. Doors open for Josh Rogers. Rogers will be third before they get off the brakes at Les Combes. No, he won't. Didn't have the slingshot. Alejandro Sanchez might try something here. Benecchi with the orange nose goes right. Rogers goes outside him. Can he cut back on the inside and still keep it on the island? No, you always lose traction on those curbs. Kevin Ellis Jr. down to third. Max Benecchi up to second. Paul Smith, you can have a word in Edgeways. I think I'm running out of breath.
Ellis Jr. just got a slow down penalty as well. That's why he's had to drop back from second. So it's now Benecchi ahead of Sanchez and Rogers. Big drama. I thought Rogers was pushing it very hard into Lecombe. Look at how close they're all getting throughout the field. This first lap, if they're going to go like this for the remainder of the race, me and Martin's going to have no voice left.
Well, the other thing is somebody in 20th place will end up winning because all the leaders are just picking up off-track penalties left, right and centre, aren't they? Running out so wide there at the Jackie Hicks curve down the hill towards Pouhon. Can't believe that they all managed to avoid the barriers. Sweeping through Piff Paff. Whoa! Again, somebody there jumping over the chicane.
And Patrick Holtzman.
The problem with that is trying to slow down and steer on the grass is not as efficient as doing it on the tarmac. You tend to come up back on as an unguided missile. Jeff Chiassi running out very wide there as they start the climb from Curve Paul Frere, named after the great Belgian journalist who passed away a few years ago. Not only a good journalist, he also won Le Mans, yes, and finished on the podium for Ferrari at Spa. Oh, different times when Ferrari had a podium finishing car. Battles all the way down the order here. Graham Carroll, number 21, right in the thick of it there in 10th place with Jeremy Bouteloup, Jamie Fluke, Martin Kronker ahead, Mac Backen behind, but it is Sebastian Job that leads. As they go too wide behind Graham Carroll, Fluke and Backham. How's that going to work as they come out of the hairpin at La Source?
Something's happened to Bouteloup. He's dropped down my timing streak.
Yeah, down to 21st and below. Has he gone into the pits?
No, he's not gone into the pits. I think he's had an instant either at the bus stop chicane or at La Source by the looks of things, just on the timing strain. I was going to mention Sebastian Job needs to do all he can to try and pull away at the front. He did have a 1 second gap, but that slipstream has meant that Benecchi is getting closer to now just 3/4 of a second back.
Exactly right. He's towing the entire field up the hill, basically. It's like being a solo breakaway cyclist. You're doing all the work in the air, and worse than that, the turbulent air behind you is actually less difficult for the guy behind to push through. So Benecchi is closing. And then Sanchez up to third ahead of Rogers, but was very wide. Extin Radiant. Let's take a look here, coming up to the bus stop. Up to the hairpin at La Source, rather. Oh! Well, that's what happened to Jeremy Bouteloup. Tagged into a spin.
And how close was he to collecting Jeff Chiassi as well? Almost the innocent party again there at the La Source corner. But it's something that's so easily done. We've seen that now twice, haven't we? 2 cars going into the back under braking. And these drivers just got to be a little bit careful around their compatriots into these hard braking zones.
And the problem is you come from such high speed around most of the circuit down to first gear and about 50 kilometers an hour. And suddenly the distances just catch you out, don't they?
Yeah.
Climbing the hill here then as we start the long climb up through the long left, quarter 17, and then the big left-hander at Blanchimont. Very intimidating corner. Still power, foot to the boards, powering up the hill. You can see chopping around in the background the blue nose of car number 21, Graham Carroll, looking for a way through. Oh! That wasn't clever.
Oh, that's even less clever, is that?
In fact, that wasn't Carroll, was it? That was Holtzman's car, and that was into the back of Jared Filzel, I think.
Yes, it was Filzel, yeah. And, well, the rest got collected there in all of that shenanigans at the bus stop. And, I mean, Filzel's rejoining the middle of the bus stop, maybe not the most ideal. Just cut across and take you into the left-hand side of the track afterwards.
And just hope that there's nothing in the way. On board with Jeff Chiassi. Not a bad line, nice and clean and legal there through Eau Rouge over Radiant and starting this monster climb up the Kemmel Straight, where in the slipstream you can see the car in front now start to just close a fraction, but Chiassi didn't have as good a run as the car in front of him there, which is David Williams in 12th place. Looking back towards our leaders, Sebastian Job, Max Benecchi with the orange nose, and then the blues of Alejandro Sanchez. Josh Rogers in 4th, and at the moment that would sort of undo the damage that Rogers did to Sanchez in race 1, but still Sebastian Job with the upper hand. Job scoring more in qualifying, more in race 1 than either of his two closest, in fact, than any of his championship rivals, because he was at the top of the pile in both. So it's been a good weekend so far at Spa-Francorchamps. Let's hope that's not the commentator's curse on him.
Yeah, I'm always careful what I say about drivers, especially when they're having a good run of things. But Sebastian just seems to be really in a zone around here today. He really seems to be just hitting his marks absolutely perfectly and getting his lines right, getting the braking right, turning in. But we've got to remember, this track, it's a long old track. It's a 30-minute race. You've got that element of tyre preservation that you've got to do here. Although the track temperatures, I can tell you, 22 degrees. It's quite chilly. It's about right for Spa-Francorchamps, actually, isn't it, that track temperature?
Or North Yorkshire, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yes, it's autumn. That's absolutely the height of summer. That's why it's perishing and everybody's got a coat on. So, again, the leaders all together, and right behind the top 4, Kevin Ellis Jr. I was just trying to do a little bit of mental arithmetic. Ellis came in here in 7th place. Jeff Giassi, 6th, is 20 points ahead of him. And Dane Warren, 5th in the points, not starting this weekend. He had a power outage at home and couldn't join qualifying. And that means that Kevin Ellis Jr. will be very close indeed to moving up to 5th place in the championship if he can just finish where he is. And that will be a heck of a jump for him. And unfortunately, Dane Warren is not going to recover from those 0 scores this weekend.
Yeah, he's been quietly going about his business, as Kevin. As here we go with the replay then. The Vodafone replay of, well, the shenanigans that happened at the bus stop chicane. So it's Jared Filsell, the Apex Racing Team driver. He's taking the wider line in and, well, just snow plough into the back of him from the Red Bull car of Holtzman. And then Sedgwick is an innocent part of getting involved with, I believe it was Thomas Tetteler who was involved in that one as well. So, yeah, bit of innocent party action happening once again, but carnage, I think is the word I would use down there.
Yeah, Patrick Holtzman somehow managed to hang on, number 27, but in real life, he would have been parked and sent home with a flea in his ear. Christopher Dambeek's right behind him, car number 110 for the German driver, and Jared Filsell there as well, who got snow ploughed off the circuit by Patrick Holtzman. It wasn't actually Filsell that Holtzman was trying to pass, and it was Bobby Zelensky, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he misbraked behind Bobby Zelensky and ran into the car that was ahead of both of them, which was the unfortunate Jared Filsell, who was minding his own business, and then suddenly he was looking down at tarmac instead of straight ahead at the corner.
It's always concerning when you're looking at tarmac from the driving seat of a car, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate with the design of this car, that with it being a rear-engine car, the front is quite low down. It just seems to hook in underneath it. Look at this, Rogers and Sanchez now. They're starting to fight. Oh, Sanchez is off.
Now, was there contact from Josh Rogers, or did Alejandro Sanchez just get in too hot under braking? That could be a championship breaker for Sanchez. Worked so hard in race 1, worked so hard in race 2, was on the podium. But equally, if Josh Rogers gets a penalty for that, that could be a championship breaker for both of them. 3 races remain, the Nürburgring, Le Mans and Monza, with 85 points a weekend. Before we started qualifying, there were 255 points still available, and the leader only has 360 coming in here. Well, let's take a look again, Paul.
Yeah, this is, I think this is going to be too close to call just from one look, but here they are into the braking. So Rogers is looking, Sanchez is just taking his normal line, and then I mean, the behaviour of that car, the way it suddenly went around like that, it looks almost like there was contact.
It did. I think he turned in and Rogers' nose was still on the inside. Rogers did not have an overlap really, and Sanchez, you know, if you're in real life, these cars are left-hand drive. You get the wings of your seat, you get your hands device, your helmet that gets in the way, you can't see it all. Jussi Jääkelä leading this little train down the hill. Jussi Jääkelä, 23 car. And this is the battle just for 20th place, so still well in the points. Perez, 22 machine, in 22nd place rather, number 14. There is the 42 car, Matti Kaivisoja. On board with him. Now a little further back in the train, this is Valtteri Alander. So Valtteri is in 23rd place, Marc Perez just in front. Nice early upshift there from Valtteri. He's the torque of the motor. You don't have 400 odd horsepower under your right foot and not use that torque as well. And then pulling all the way up the hill. The old road comes in on your left, just there. If you look back at some of the early footage of the 60s, you will realise that the racetrack is about 4 times as wide now as it used to be there. Not just the tarmac, but all the areas around it. No more barbed wire and fences and trees right up by the side of the circuit. Sebastian Job still our race leader from Max Benecki. Nothing between the top four all covered by just 2 seconds. And battles down the order are equally tight.
Yeah, you mentioned about barbed wire, trees and lamp posts, people's houses as well, lined the side of that track. It's incredible to think that there were motor racing around there when you look back at it now with what we know now. But still, it is a spectacular venue. As here's Graham Carroll then making a move on Jamie Fluke, and well, to the other side, we've got Matt Backham trying to have one to the inside as well.
And coming around the outside, David Williams in 31. Does he get a place? He doesn't. And Jamie Fluke in 49 has been a bit of the stopper in the bottle here. They're all stuck behind him. They can't get by. Graham Carroll now running out of patience into the long right-hander at Rivage. Named after Beau Rivage, little village at the top of the hill. And then diving down through the Jackie X curve and plunging down the hill again. When we talk about the climb up the Keble Straight being steep, this is equally steep, but you just dive down the hill through Prouan, that fast double left-hander, and then hanging on the exit here, trying to keep it legal just, and then down to Piff Paff. And again, this middle element here, sector 2 of the track, so demanding of the aerodynamic grip of the cars, the tyre grip of the cars. A very hard circuit on tyre wear, this track. Sector 1 and 3, you want low drag. You don't particularly need a lot of downforce. Sector 2 is just the opposite. You need all the wing you dare carry. But of course, more wing for Sector 2 means you slow up all the hills, and unless you have a big horsepower advantage, that is tough to get away with. And watch the car behind us getting closer now. Graham Carroll creeping in. If we look back further, Jamie Fluke, Graham Carroll, Matt Backham, David Williams, Jeff Chiassi, Bobby Zaletsky, Patrick Holtzman, almost on the back of this train now. And Carroll outbrakes himself. Through goes Jeff Chiassi. Mistake, under-braking by Graham Carroll. Or was that Holtzman? That was Holtzman, again outbraking himself. This time didn't hit anybody though.
Yeah, he's having issues with that bus-stop chicane, isn't he? He's not finding it the best way around there, around the rest of the traffic. But yeah, Christopher Van Beets and Jared Filsell able to make their way past Patrick. So at least Jared has made himself back in front of Patrick after that incident a few laps ago at the bus-stop chicane. So a bit of redress going on there between those two.
Again, look at how squirrely these cars get as they come over that big rise. You're in this huge compression coming up the hill from Eau Rouge. It's almost like you hit a brick wall head on, and the car is crushed into the tarmac, and then you pop out over the top and it gets all light and floaty and it slithers around. If you haven't got the line right, it is still the mother and father of all accidents waiting for you. It still fully gets your attention in any car. Well, there's nowhere easy on this run in to the championship decider, is there? Next time out, they'll be at the Nürburgring on the full Nordschleife. One of the most terrifying racetracks you could possibly imagine. Jackie Stewart used to call it the Green Hell, and that name has been gleefully adopted. So that will be Saturday, September the 5th. And then 3 weeks after that, we head back to the Circuit de la Sarthe to Le Mans for the penultimate round of the series before heading to the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. That will be on October the 10th for the season finale. Will we have a champion crowned by then? It seems unlikely, to be honest, that anybody is going to break away in the next 2 races. Let's take a look back, Paul.
Yeah. So this is Sanchez then. No, sorry, that's not Sanchez. That's the 42 car.
Yeah, that was behind him, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that was
Cadisoya.
Yeah. So getting collected at Rivage so easily done. If you just look again, drivers, if they don't take that tighter line when they've got somebody behind, that open door is tempting to so many other drivers to be able to have a little poke the nose down there, and you send yourself off when you close that door around there. But I was just going to mention about the championship, if last season is anything to go by, it is going to go down to that final race. Let's on the final round, the final race of the championship.
Yeah, I think that's likely to be the case. We've seen so many reversals of fortune, haven't we? Top 3 breaking away now from Kevin Ellis Jr. This is still anybody's race with 13 minutes on the clock. Now, on board with 211, Thibaut Casubon. And I think it's that Valtteri Allender right in front of us, dives to the inside. And the problem there is you get on the curbs and you drift out wide. Allender couldn't help himself from running out wide because the car is unsettled. And unfortunately, also, when you head down into Pouhon there, if you're just slightly too late in turning in, the road is still falling away from you and you just drift out wide and leave the door open. So Cadisoya and Allender getting together there, and Cadisoya not exactly coming off best. Back with our...
I was going to mention these 3 at the front now. Half a second covering the 3 of them. All of a sudden, business is picking up at the front. We've still got 12 minutes of this race remaining. So I think Beneke has said, it's either Beneke saying, right, I've had enough of being sat here in second, I want to get to the front, or Sebastian Job just trying to pace himself a bit, not use up his tyres too much, to then have a second push towards the end of the race.
Yeah, to have something to defend with is always devoutly to be wished. So looking back from Sebastian Job, that's your top 3 on the right-hand side of your picture. And Josh Rogers is tail end Charlie in this trio. And he's in the best position because he's picking up a double tow. Whenever one or the other pulls out, then you still get just as effective a tow from the 2 cars as you do when they're in line astern. So it's a double-edged sword because his wings aren't working as well, his aero isn't working as well, his temperatures will be starting to climb a little, brake and engine temperatures, because the cooling air isn't linear, it's turbulent and it doesn't work so well. But what it does give him is great straight line speed, greater than them. What it doesn't give him is more grip. It actually reduces his grip in sector 2. So he needs to capitalise here, up the Kemmel Straight, climbing up behind. Here we go. He's getting close. This could be just enough to make a pass on Max Benecke, or at least to have a go. Benecke goes far right, and Sebastian Job, the leader, takes the racing line. Rogers behind on the outside has the grip to get it slowed down, but Max Benecke was just about able to hang on there. However, that goes exactly to show you that that double slipstream means that Josh Rogers is in the driving seat now. And more important even than that, nobody is behind him. Kevin Ellis Jr. is a full second back very nearly, and he's got problems of his own. He's not worried about Josh Rogers. He's worried about Johan Hart, Tommy Østgaard and Alejandro Sanchez, who is closing on the 6th place man Østgaard. So right now, with that white, red and black car, Josh Rogers, rather than Sebastian Job, is the man who may end up dictating the podium.
Did you notice how as soon as Sebastian Job pulled out there and Benecke went to the right-hand side to defend, Sebastian Job moved over at the front of that queue to give Benecke that slipstream. He does not want Joshua Rogers right behind him in this queue of traffic. He'd rather have Benecke acting as a buffer between the two of them. So he's thinking tactically here, is Sebastian, to try and keep Max between the two of them.
You're exactly right. He'd rather Benecke, who's further behind him in points, had 45 and Josh Rogers only had 40. The other element of that is that if you're on your own, whether you're in front or behind, the slipstream isn't working for you. When he is in front, directly in front of Max Benecke, it actually reduces the drag on his car fractionally, so his car is slowed down less. That's why, having moved over, he then saw Benecke's move back in front of Benecke, which helps Job keep the speed in his own car as well. Two cars together work quicker than one. Down the inside, Josh Rogers. Now then, can he just ease Benecke out wide? Well, he gives him racing room. Josh Rogers with a slight overlap down into Eau Rouge. He's got the move done. Benecke is going to be very brave indeed to come back through on the inside there. Rogers has the line, and Benecke is going to run out of room. All four wheels off on the inside and the outside, and avoids the tyre barriers. But that was really well judged by Josh Rogers. That started on the run into the bus stop, where he came out close enough to have that dive down the inside into La Source, and Benecke slipstreams his way by. Can he hold it?
Oh no!
No, he can't. Contact, and they are both off, and suddenly things are looking much better for Alejandro Sanchez.
Well, I'm sorry, Max, but I don't think that move was on at all at Lecombe. He's come from way back, missed the apex completely, and with him then trying to take the line, he's collected Rogers between the two of them. My goodness, I'm sure we'll get a replay of that, that's for sure, but that is dramatic because that's dropped Rogers down to 6th place behind Sanchez. Sebastian Job now 2 seconds ahead of second place manager Kevin Ellis Jr.
Yeah, that was, unfortunately, it was always going to happen. Benecke came in so late, and I'm sure Josh Rogers was doing all he could to stop and let him overshoot in front of him, but at some stage he had to turn in, the car was still there. So Benecke on the inside curbs at Lecombe, again, it's never a good look. Never a good look. That does not work well. You are actually better off trying to straight line it, take the penalty, and come back on. It certainly would have cost him and Josh Rogers much less time. But for Sebastian Job, that was just a gift-wrapped present, wasn't it? I mean, it couldn't have been better than that. His two of his three closest championship rivals off in the same incident.
Yeah, it's...
and Rogers has got a problem, hasn't he? He's got damage because he's being really pushed around by Martin Krunker, and Krunker in the number 5 car trying to come up and actually take another place off him to move up to 6. So there's Sebastian Job, the leader, and a long way clear here with just under 7 minutes to go.
Rogers has got significant damage to the right-hand side of his car, so he'll have either some form of steering damage, but certainly the aerodynamics will be massively affected. So that means that going up the Kemmel straight, well, so much of this track, you're on full throttle for so long, that high speed matters, especially down in towards Eau Rouge and then up through the Kemmel straight and also at Blanchimont as well. So these guys, Josh Rogers is going to be hemorrhaging speed, and this is going to allow the others to go. But here we go with the replay again, Martin.
Yeah, and we're on board with Max Benecke. Rogers is almost half a car in front. Benecke's saying, I've got the inside, I'm coming through, but he can't hold the line. He has to have a big breathe off the throttle. So the deal is done. He keeps his foot buried in here. He picks up the toe again. And now he's going, right, I was in front, although he wasn't in his head. He believes he had the line. Now he's going to go super late. Watch the brake lights. He's still hard on the gas as the brake lights come on. And Benecke goes straight across the nose of Josh Rogers. And unfortunately, when you bounce on the inside curbs there, you have no control of where the car's going to end up because 2 of the tyres are on the tarmac. The other 2 are basically floating around in the air, and there's just not the grip there to deal with it. Which then means that Sebastian Job leads from this lot. And this lot is Kevin Ellis Jr., Johan Hart, Tommy Østgaard, last year's winner, and Alejandro Sanchez. So this is second, third, fourth, and fifth. I don't think Sanchez thought that that was going to come his way in a hurry. The question is, can he actually work his way up the queue here in another 2.5 laps?
Well, he's been sat there for a long time, pretty much the whole race right now. I know that Alex Simpson, the Apex Racing team boss, will be watching this nervously because two of his drivers, Ellis Jr. and Johan Hart, are together in second and third place. So he'll be looking at that and wanting to get those two not to fight between them. By the way, Beneke is back with Rogers. This could be interesting. Rogers a little bit loose through the middle of the chicane, trying to get the drive out the corner. Rogers needs to be smart here. He can't afford to get involved in any shenanigans with Max. He needs to just race his own race. He's got damage to pick up as many points as possible.
Yeah, Max will have damage as well, but you're right, Rogers has got damage on both sides at the front, and whatever he can get out of this is better than a retirement or a ban, so he has got to be cautious. Of course, the problem is Beneke's having none of it, and so it's going to be very tough for Josh Rogers to put in a clean pass inside 4 minutes. So it'll be this plus one more here at Spa-Francorchamps. They're lapping just under a 2-minute 20 lap at race pace now.
You can see that Rogers is still dropping away from Beneke, even in the slipstreamers. Look at how close Sanchez is getting now.
Yeah, diving to the inside of Tommy Usgaard as they come down the hill. Usgaard gets the door shut. Well, Sanchez has been closing on this group right from the beginning, and now he's been stuck behind Usgaard for a lap or two. And of course, Usgaard, well, although he isn't particularly high up in the championship order, only 8th coming in here, he's got a teammate who is. And so actually holding up Alejandro Sanchez will be good for Usgaard and good for his teammate Josh Rogers.
Yeah, he certainly will be playing the team game. Usgaard will have the team boss in the ear, will be certainly trying to tell him, look, keep Sanchez behind, just so we can lose as little points as possible, and so he will defend that for all it's worth right here. But Usgaard, certainly he's not a no slouch, that's for sure, and that team, you know, they've picked him for a reason. He is a very, very capable driver, and he can win races when he needs to, or he can defend like everything is on the line here.
And he had enough last year to win this race as well, so yeah, you're absolutely right. If Alejandro Sanchez does manage to get any further up the order, then it'll be possibly a last lap lunge. 2 minutes to go. Ooh, so the lead has already started, so we will get to the timing line. Just a few seconds to go on the clock. I wonder how few. Can Sebastian Joe reduce the laps that his rivals will have to try and score even one more point? That would be devoutly to be wished. If he can slow down enough to not have to do another lap, then it's better for him and worse for his rivals.
But he doesn't want to slow down too much because he's only got a 2.5 second gap between him and Ellis Jr. So as here comes Sanchez once again, looking to the outside in the background of that shot, and well, can Sanchez make the move?
Here we go. Sanchez gets turned around for a second time by an identically coloured car. So Alejandro Sanchez now being passed by Martin Kroenke. So he's back where he started. Got turned around by Josh Rogers at La Source early in the race. Gets turned around by Tommy Usgaard late in the race. He will not be sending any Christmas cards in their direction, I don't think. Neither of those actually needed to happen if the other driver had given racing room. In both cases, Alejandro Sanchez was turned around in the rear quarter, so he was pretty much fully ahead here.
Yeah, so you see this on the replay then, on the brakes. Well, they're not even turning in at that point to the corner either, so they've come together in a straight line.
I need to see that again from that angle, because actually it looked like there was no contact, so I will withdraw possibly that second protest. However, 10 seconds to go. No, we won't have to do another lap because he's got enough in hand that he can make sure that time has elapsed, Sebastian Joe. It has now. This is the last lap up the hill for the final time towards the bus stop, approaching at around 160 miles an hour, down through the gears to around a 50-kilometre-an-hour minimum here. And the checkered flag is in sight, the finish line, and victory for Sebastian Job. He took pole, he won the sprint, he won the main race. It is a clean sweep, maximum points weekend for him.
Kronker.
And
What
Martin
happened to Kronker? The last chicane, something's happened to him. He's dropped from, what, 5th place down to, where is that in the end there for Kronker? Is it 11th?
Well, my timing has been dead for 6 laps, so I couldn't tell you. We'll take a look again at that as I try and get the timing screen to update past lap 6. However, at the moment, Sebastian Job is our race winner. See what we can pick out of the bones of that. So Kevin Ellis Jr. taking 2nd, Johan Hart in 3rd. Big weekend for Sebastian Job. Big weekend for Kevin Ellis Jr. Tommy Usgaard, Alejandro Sanchez, and Max Benecchi. So Sanchez finishing, or seen to finish, in 5th position despite that contact. Josh Rogers down to 7th. Ahead of Jamie Fluke, Graham Carroll, and David Williams. So there have been some post-race penalties, I think, there. Martin Kronker, where then is last year's winner? He has been, I know, Tommy Usgaard in 4th place. No, so he's still, 4th there. No, I'm looking too far down the order. So there is the rest of it. And that's going to make interesting reading in the championship. Josh Rogers loses more ground in 2nd. Alejandro Sanchez loses more ground in 3rd. Max Benecchi loses more ground in 4th. Dane Warren loses ground in 5th. Jeff Giassi picks up a bit in 6th. But Kevin Ellis Jr. is, like Sebastian Job, the big winner here this weekend. Let's take a look again at what happened to the 5 car of Martin Kronker. Alejandro Sanchez trying to go the long way around the outside. Oh, dear. Not great.
That's all a bit unnecessary, is that really, isn't it? That was a desperation move if I've ever seen one there. And
I think Sanchez feeling pretty aggrieved by that stage of the race, probably.
Yeah, absolutely what had happened in there.
Well, I either upset with Usgaard if there was contact, or with himself if there wasn't, and just desperate to try and pick up something on the final lap. And again, the outside-inside move at the bus stop, it's a little bit like the first corner at Silverstone, final corner at Silverstone. You know, you've just got to get it right. Otherwise, there's lots of bodywork damage and visits to the steward's office. However, all right, here we go. Josh Rogers and Max Benecchi down into Eau Rouge. This is about 3 from home. Josh Rogers kept it clean, didn't he? Just about there. Max Benecchi basically went from hard shoulder to central reservation and back. And then this smacks just a little of desperation. This is the last of the late breakers and then some. Gets on the curb here, and it just spits him straight off. You saw there, the car just basically was fired off the curbs towards the barriers on the outside. And unfortunately for Josh Rogers, he was still in the way. And that's inevitable. As soon as you hit those curbs on the driver's left at the top of the hill there, then there you go. Well, that's it for our Spa action. But let's hear again with Will and Paul and get a bit of post-race analysis and hear what our drivers thought of all of that.
Well, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Paul. What a dramatic race here at Spa. It always likes to bring in some form of drama along the way. Over the years, it's brought us so much entertainment, but here today, there's a couple of very interesting moments. I think the biggest one will go down to be the battle between Rogers and also Benecchi. So we've got a replay up on your screen here, Connery.
Yeah, we absolutely do. Involving the number 58 car. Of course, that was Tommy Usgaard in that instance. He had this little bit of a tangle with Alejandro Sanchez coming into Lecum for one of the final times there. And it's been a bit of a tumultuous race there for Sanchez, making contact with a good couple of cars here today. But like you said, though, Will, that incident between Rogers and Benecchi might have being a big element in deciding which way this championship is going to go.
Yeah, and I was looking at this one in super slow-mo whilst the crew of Martin and Paul were commentating that. What I noticed, Connery, was that all four wheels for Max Benecke were off the track as they worked through Le Cam. And a part of that was he came from about 3 car lengths back heading into that corner. So he did overshoot the corner, tried to get it back together, but then afterwards, basically, as he tried to come back onto the track, that's when he made contact with Joshua Rogers. And that's one where I am really glad that I'm not one of the people like Tyler Hudson. He's having to do all the post-race admin and looking at these incidents.
Yep, we'll absolutely have to see after this event and for the stewards to have a look at all the incidents that happened in these 2 races and decide what punishment is, if any, is necessary to be handed out. And of course, those will be updated by the time we get to the next race at the Nordschleife here, Will.
Yeah, indeed so. And with that, we're going to say thank you very much to all of you watching. Don't forget, we're back in 1 week's time as we head ourselves back to the legendary Nürburgring Nordschleife. It is going to not be a timed race, but a race based upon laps. The main reason for that is because, well, it's the Nordschleife. The laps are so long around there that you might as well just do it by lap count anyway. The last 3 rounds of the championship are the Nordschleife, Circuit de la Sarthe, and we end our journey at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. With that, we're going to say thank you very much to everyone who's been a part of our broadcast here today. For Paul Smith and Martin Haven on commentary, for Connery Maddock for the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge, and myself, Will Vincent. So long from Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and we'll see you in a week's time at the Nordschleife. Goodbye from Spa.